Well, speaking of being in pain, some of you probably recall of a couple of years ago, about 2 years ago, I had a bad kidney stone attack, and that was really painful. Took a lot out of me, but that wasn't the first time it happened. I've had a couple in my life, and the first time that happened was when we were first married. Irene and I were living in Massachusetts, and I had this, and I was going to say amazing, that sounds good, but this incredible pain from a kidney stone. I woke up in the middle of the night and the day, and it was just agonizing. Those of you who've had kidney stones know what it's like, and I just felt like I had to go to the hospital to relieve this pain. Now, the only problem at this point was that Irene was about 9.5 months pregnant. She was out to here. She was ready to go any minute. It was really late in the pregnancy, and where we were living, we had just kind of moved up there. We didn't know many people, didn't have many contacts, so she was really depending on me to be the one to get her to the hospital when she gave birth. And the other problem is the hospital was like an hour away. So here she is, ready to go any minute, and her only reliable person to help her through, this is our first pregnancy too, so we don't know what's going to happen, and I am in excruciating pain. And I said, we got to go to the emergency room, because at that point, all I cared about was relieving the pain. It was so bad. Some of you may know what that's like. And I'm sorry, I'm not trying to sound selfish, I'm not trying to sound egotistical, but in all honesty, I didn't care about Irene being 9.5 months pregnant, because all I wanted was some relief from this pain. It was so agonizing. And so I had to go to the hospital, and that was the only place I was going to get this relief from the pain. Now, just to finish out the story, I got through it okay, and Irene went into labor about a week later, and we had the baby, and everything went well. But at that moment, all I cared about was relief from the pain I was feeling. Now, I raised this story because I believe, in a sense, it's a metaphor for our world today and for our culture. And the reason I say that is because when I went to the hospital, all I wanted was relief from the pain, but if that's all I got, which I did get, thankfully, my treatment wouldn't have been complete. If the doctor just gave me relief from the pain I was feeling, that would have been great, thank you very much, but I never would have been healed, because the doctor needed to find out what was the cause of the pain, what was the root of the pain. And it wasn't enough to just give me a few pills and send me home, where I felt better. Now, as I've said, this is a metaphor for our world today, because there's a lot of people in our culture today who are in a lot of pain. And I'm not just talking about physical pain. I'm talking about emotional pain, spiritual pain, psychological pain, discontent, dissatisfaction, not feeling well about their life and the way things are going. This is the problem of our age. And the problem is when people feel this pain, what they want is just a pill to make them feel better right away, because they just want the pain to go away. So hence, we've seen in our culture a rise in things like alcohol and drug abuse, prescription drug abuse, materialism, pornography, TV self-help shows, yoga, the occult, you name it. All of these things are things in our society that people are trying to go to because they want to relieve the pain they're feeling. And these things promise a quick and easy relief from their pain. They take them, they do them, they indulge in them. What happens? You feel good for a little while. But if that's all you do, you're only treating the symptoms. You're not getting at the underlying cause. Why are people feeling so much pain? Why are people in so much turmoil? Why aren't people satisfied and happy in life? What's the root cause? What's the underlying issue? We can't just treat the symptoms. And we know this is the case because despite all of these things that people are doing to try to feel better, the world isn't getting any better. And people don't seem to be feeling better. Our world doesn't seem to be one where everyone's saying, everything's good now. Thank you. Everyone's feeling good. No, all these things people do to try to relieve their pain are not making things better. If anything, they're probably making things worse. Why? Because we're not treating the cause of the pain. We're treating the symptoms. Now, along comes Jesus, our great physician, and he offers the cure. Like a good doctor, he doesn't just treat the symptoms, but he, like he always does, gets right at the root of the problem. And it's found in our third beatitude today, our third blessing from the book of Matthew. Verse 6, chapter 5, verse 6, where he says, "Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled." Filled. Filled right up. The Greek word for filled that's used there literally means to be full of food, to eat all you can, to be content, to be satisfied, to be happy. Like sometimes if you celebrate Thanksgiving, you have that big Thanksgiving meal, and when you're done, you just sit down, and it's like, whew, that was good. You have a nice full stomach, you feel content, you just lay there, maybe take a little nap, watch a little TV. That's the idea here, to be filled, to be content and satisfied. And isn't that what everybody wants in our world? To be full, to be content, to be at peace, to be satisfied. Spiritually, emotionally, relationally, we want to be filled and content. It's what people throughout history have hungered for. And people who have felt pain in their lives throughout mankind's history have sought that peace. They've sought that contentment. Lord, I want to feel full and content. And here, Jesus offers it. How do you get it? To hunger and thirst for righteousness. That's who will be filled. So let's see what that means, because this is the answer to mankind's quest throughout the ages. So this is important stuff, people. What does he mean by that? Well, let's look at it. We know what it means to hunger and thirst, right? Everyone knows what that's like. You ever been hungry? Ever been thirsty? You know what that's like. We don't have to talk about that. And I just talked about what it means to be filled, to be content, to be satisfied, to be at peace. So we know what those mean. So it seems like this idea of the righteousness is the key part. We know what it means to be hungry, and we want to be filled. So how do we go from here to here? Well, right in the middle is this idea of righteousness. What does that mean then? Because that's the key to the problem. Well, in the Bible, this word for righteousness is used in a couple of different ways. Number one, it means to be justified or made right, righteous, made right in God's eyes. To be righteous means God looks at you and says, you're good in my book. You're good. You're right. You're righteous. You're justified. Paul writes about the righteousness of God, which comes by faith in Romans 3:22. On this most basic level, the person who hungers and thirsts for righteousness is one who wants to be right with God. They want to be right in God's eyes. They come to see that sin is the reason for their pain. They come to see that the root cause of all their problems is the sin that's in their life. They realize that it has caused pain in their life and that it has caused a separation between them and God, because God can't tolerate unrighteousness. In terms of the Beatitudes that we've already seen thus far, we would say that this person realizes their spiritual poverty. They are mourning for their sin. They want to do something about it because they realize this is the root of my problems. They've sampled the things that the world offers for relief, and they aren't satisfied. They still aren't content. They come to know that only through a relationship with Jesus can their sins be forgiven, and they can be restored to a right relationship with God. And their hunger and thirst can then be filled. They're hungering for something in life, some meaning, some connection with God. And when we confess our sins and come to Christ, He fills us with His righteousness, and we're made right in His eyes. When the prodigal son in Luke chapter 15 was hungry, when he left home and got hungry, he fed on scraps from the pig pen, right? But what it says in the story is when he was starving, when he realized his real hunger, he went back to his father. And that's our only recourse when we have that deep hunger for God, is to turn back to God, our Father, knowing that He is our only hope for help. This is really the essence of the gospel, people. It's what the gospel is all about. And when we receive Jesus as Lord, we receive His righteousness. And as a result, we are filled. We're filled up with the righteousness of God that comes through Jesus Christ. So thus, on the most fundamental level, this is what the world needs. This is what the answer to the world's pain and problem is. It gets at the root of our problems, it gets at the root of our pain, and it offers the only true relief that can satisfy us. So that's the first meaning of righteousness. There's a second meaning to righteousness as well. After we have that initial filling, after we receive Christ as Lord, after we are filled with His righteousness, there's a continuing process of hungering and thirsting that goes on. You know, even after you have that big, sumptuous Thanksgiving meal, what happens the next day? You're hungry again, right? You begin to hunger again. You begin to thirst again. Well, that's the process that we call sanctification. When we're first filled with the righteousness of Christ, we're made new again, but then as we begin to walk down the path of following Christ, we're continually hungering and thirsting more and more. That ongoing hunger and thirst we experience is the desire to be more and more holy. We call it sanctification, the desire to grow more like Christ. It's planted in us when we become Christians. It's a desire to know God better. It's a desire to be in constant fellowship with the Father, Son, and Spirit, as John says in 1 John 1:3. It's a desire to grow the fruit of the Spirit that we read about in Galatians 5:22 and 23. It's a desire to live out the Christian life in all its fullness. In short, it's a hunger and a thirst to be like Christ. That's planted within us. It's something that drives us and consumes us like a starving man. We want that righteousness. We want that holiness more and more from God. And we know the only way we get it is to continue to pursue Him and grow in Him. And to those who hunger and thirst in this way, Jesus has said he will bless us. He will fill us. When we truly hunger for holiness and righteousness, God will fill us with those things. He wants to fill you with those things. He's not going to withhold them. Mary said as much in her song to the Lord. In Luke 1:53, he said, he has filled the hungry with good things. Psalm 107:9 says, for he satisfies the longing soul, and the hungry soul he fills with good things. In John 4:13, Jesus told the woman at the well that anyone that drinks the water that he offers will never thirst again. And he said in John 6:35, I am the bread of life. Very telling metaphor. I am the bread of life. Whoever comes to me shall not hunger, and whoever believes in me shall never thirst. This is the blessing of God. When we hunger for him, when we hunger for his righteousness, he fills us. He makes us content. He makes us satisfied. Kind of reminds me of a growing teenager. You ever raised a teenager? There's only one thing they want to do. Eat. Right? Well, that's what the Christian life is supposed to be like. We're just consumed with wanting more and more of Christ. And he continues to fill us, which keeps us satisfied. You get hungry, you eat a meal, you feel better. You get thirsty, you have something to drink, you feel better. That's the Christian life. We hunger and thirst for God. Now, the problem with many Christians today, unfortunately, is that they don't seem very hungry for righteousness. Rather, they like to do what I call noshing. You know what it means to nosh? It means you take a little bit here and there. Eat a little bit here, eat a little bit there. Take little bits of food here and there. So they never really develop a deep hunger. They get a little snack on Sunday morning. Maybe during the week they nibble a little bit here and there. You know, they're eating enough just to kind of stay alive, but they never develop that deep hunger. They're never experiencing the full blessing of God. They still don't have a feeling of contentment and satisfaction in their life, even though they say they're Christians and they're trying to do the right thing. They don't really feel like their lives are going well. It's because they're not hungry enough. They're noshing on food here and there. Little bits of food will keep us alive for a little while, but we won't really be healthy. We'll slowly waste away spiritually. We're kind of like this guy in the picture. You got the first slide? That's kind of how a lot of Christians are. They seem pretty happy, but they're really thin, and they're slowly wasting away. You know, nowadays people say it's good to be skinny, but it's not. It's not healthy. And for a lot of Christians, if you're not eating enough, you're not healthy. This guy's not getting filled enough. Now, the next guy is. He's happy, right? We have a lot of Christians that look like this too. But is that healthy? No, that's not healthy either. These are Christians who look healthy. You look at that guy and you think, wow, he's getting his full of Christ, isn't he? But he really isn't. What is he eating? Junk food. He's eating junk food. What is that about? Well, a lot of Christians, they sound good. They look good on Sunday morning. They talk the talk, walk the walk. Yeah, praise the Lord, hallelujah. But then they go back to the normal week and they eat junk food all week, right? They partake in some of the worldly things that I talked about. They fill up on worldly things that they think will bring happiness. They think bring contentment. This guy thinks that a couple of more cheeseburgers will really make him happy, but it won't. It's junk food. And thus many Christians, as I said, are not satisfied with life. They're not content in life. They don't have that peace because they're not hungering for righteousness. They're hungering for junk food. So let me give you the secret to life this morning. You came here this morning, you didn't know you were going to get the secret to life. This is the secret to life, what people have hungered and thirsted for millennia. The things people have searched for, anguished over, spent their lives pursuing unsuccessfully. You ready for the secret to life? According to Jesus, this is my words, according to Jesus, we can never attain happiness. We can never attain true satisfaction. We can never attain true contentment by direct actions to obtain it. Okay? Rather, it comes about as a byproduct of something else. Let me explain. We think we can get happiness and contentment directly, right? If only I had this job. If only I had this relationship. If only I had this much money. If only I had this house. If only I had this title at work. If only I had this status in the community. If only I had that thing, then I'd be happy. That's what we think. So what do? We spend our lives trying to get those things. I want that. That's going to make me happy. I want this. That's going to make me happy. We try to get those things directly because we think they're going to bring happiness. But here's the big secret, according to Jesus. Jesus says, no, those things will never make you happy. They'll never make you content. You know how you get happiness? You know how you get contentment? It's a byproduct of something else. You know what that something else is? Righteousness. That's what he said in the Beatitude. When we hunger and thirst for righteousness, then we get the blessing of being happy and content and satisfied. That's what he's been saying all along. When we hunger and thirst for righteousness, not things, not the immediate things, rather when we put those things aside and pursue righteousness, then what comes in its wake is true contentment and happiness and satisfaction. Jesus said as much in Matthew 6:33. He said, but seek first his kingdom and his righteousness, and then what happens? All those other things that we think are going to make us happy, but don't, those things will come afterwards. When we seek his kingdom and his righteousness first, then the happiness comes behind it. Not when we try to find things to make us happy. This is the great irony of life. When we seek those other things first, thinking they're going to make us happy, we never will be happy because they cannot make us happy. But we keep pursuing them and going after them, thinking they're going to make us happy because the world and its system and the advertisers and everyone else says, yeah, this is what's going to make you happy. Get this, buy that, go here, do this, then you'll be happy. And people do it and they come out and they say, I'm still not happy. The only thing that brings true joy, true contentment, true filling up is to seek after Christ's righteousness. So what are you doing in life to attain happiness? What do you think is going to make you happy? What do you think is going to make you content? What are you doing to treat that pain you feel? See, what's driving all this is the pain people feel. They're in pain emotionally. They're not happy. They're not satisfied. So they think these things are going to make them happy. What are you doing to treat the pain in your life? You chasing after money? Possessions? Bad relationships? Those are like the pills we take to try to ease our pain. They help for a little while, but they're not treating the cause of our disease, which is we need the righteousness of Christ. And when we pursue that, we're healed and we feel better and are content and satisfied. The things of this world may bring momentary relief, but seeking God and his righteousness heals our disease, and we're satisfied and content. Now, as with all the Beatitudes that we've looked at so far, this one has a glorious fulfillment in God's final eternal plan. As we hunger and thirst for more of God on this earth, as we pursue him, we do it looking forward to heaven. Because when we get to heaven, something wonderful is going to happen. Revelation 7:16 says, "They shall hunger no more." We won't hunger anymore. We won't thirst anymore. In other words, we won't have any pain. We won't have any angst. We'll be content. We'll be satisfied. Why? For the Lamb in the midst of the throne will be their shepherd, and he will guide them to springs of living water. When Jesus returns, all righteousness that we've been pursuing in life, all righteousness will be completed. Why? Because all sin and all evil will be destroyed. He will create a new heaven, a new earth, which according to 2 Peter 3:13 will be the home of righteousness. His children will stand before him in completed righteousness, clothed in glorified bodies, with every stain, wrinkle, and blemish erased, absolutely perfect in body, soul, and spirit, filled with the righteousness of Christ in all its manifest beauty. Only those who hunger and thirst for righteousness now, while on earth, will be invited to that great wedding supper of the Lamb in heaven, where they'll be filled once for all. We'll never hunger and thirst again. What a beautiful picture in heaven. So, how hungry are you, really? How thirsty are you, really? Do you really hunger and thirst for God in your life? Is it your all-consuming passion in life? Is it what you wake up every day thinking about? Is it what you think about during the day? How can I get more and more of Christ? Do you think about it throughout your waking hours? Are you willing to rearrange your schedule so you can get more of Christ's righteousness? Are you willing to sacrifice some of your worldly pursuits so you can get more of Christ's righteousness? Have you been trying to fill that hunger and thirst through relationships or money or possessions or those other things? Again, as we've seen today, you won't attain it. You'll never get it. Give it up. Stop pursuing the things of the world. It's only the righteousness of Christ that will fill you and keep you satisfied. Jesus says, "Come to me. Pursue me, not those things. Come after me. Hunger for me. Seek my kingdom and my righteousness. Be satisfied in me. Find your peace in my presence. Find your true value in a relationship with me. Come and be filled with my righteousness." You know, the world's response to your hunger will just leave you feeling abused and taken advantage of, falling behind and always needing that one more thing to be content and happy. And when you attain it, they'll come up with something else for you to chase after. God's way of feeding our hunger is always satisfying, always encouraging, and always filling. Take an honest look at your life and take a look at what really moves you, what really consumes your thoughts during the day. What is it that gets you up out of bed each day? Is it to make money and get ahead, or to hunger and thirst for more of Christ and his righteousness? If it's not that, you'll never achieve or attain what you're looking for. And you'll never be blessed in this life by Jesus, and you won't be blessed in the life to come. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they are the ones who will be filled and content.